everyone, it's Jeannie here, and today I am so honored to be joined by platinum recording artist, Grammy Dove Award winning artist. She's a legend, Amy Grant. We are going to be talking about a bunch of things, but particularly the 30th anniversary release of her album, Heart in Motion. Amy, thank you so much for taking time to talk with me.
Thank you, Jeannie. It's fun
It's
to walk down memory lane and share it with you. Yeah, thanks.
So what's really unique about this is I didn't grow up in the Christian anything. So in the last decade is when I've really committed my life more and just really discovered music and just more about just your journey. So it's been really a blessing to kind of not be in the thick of it when everything was happening for you, but to discover you as an artist and even who you are now. So I just wanted to say that I think it's awesome to just see the mark that you've left in an industry that I think needs authentic people making music for the soul.
Oh, well, thank you.
So how is it 30 years? You're like looking back, did you ever anticipate that Heart in Motion would really change your life the way it has or catapult you into where you are now?
Hmm. Um, I honestly, probably just like everybody, you just live one year at a time. Then you look back and go, oh, wow, that was a game changer. But when you're in the middle of something, you don't really think about it, you know? And
Mhm.
I'm 60 years old, so half my life ago is when I was making that record. And and half my life ago before that, when I was 15, I got on stage for the first time. I was in high school. I was involved with this youth group that was really vibrant. It was in a mixed community. Um, and I would go back to my school and say, hey, there's nobody like finding musical language for the faith journey, which is so
Mhm.
endlessly fascinating. And
Mhm.
um, anyway, so that's why I first started writing songs. I mean, I loved all the music I grew up with. Carole King, Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, John Denver, lots of bands, the Beatles, Elvis,
Yeah.
um, Elton John. Aretha Franklin, the Jackson Five. I mean, I loved music. I loved my record collection. And so I started, from 15 to 30, I was just trying to find musical language for uh, and songs to talk about the faith journey. And then
Wow.
all of a sudden, right around 1989, 90 rolled around 30 years ago, and I had put out a lot of music already. I was at such a fun, joyful time in life. I had two young kids. I was actually pregnant with my daughter making that record, Heart in Motion. And it was just my sister lived next door and she had four kids. They were always at our house. And,
Oh,
and I just made a record that reflected that time in life. And what
wow.
I was not, I mean, every record you work just as hard on, you write, you in the studio, but that record, Heart in Motion, brought together a community of creative people in a way that I had never experienced.
Mm.
And so, three producers, some new songwriters, and it did all of a sudden feel like this thing I'd sort of been doing at one pace, for 15 years. All of a sudden, I was like,
Mhm.
whew. And
So it was a change. It
it
was a
was,
change.
everything
Yeah.
got busier and bigger and happening faster. And yeah, I look back on that time and it was like being shot out of a cannon. It was wonderful and a lot of hard work. I go to
Yeah.
shows now and it will be the big production. And, we did it was probably a simpler version of that, but
Yeah.
arena shows and all that. And I just sit there clapping for that artist on stage, going, I'm so glad I'm where I am now. I know what that feels like, and I would rather
Right.
be here.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, you know what's so unique about you in particular? I know your good friend Michael W. Smith. We think of him and his music, and he's a worship leader, right? He
Yes.
creates worship music. And I think what's so unique about you, and I think which is why I identified with you coming from a secular background. I was a pop singer. So when I became a Christian, same thing. I'm just like, I don't naturally write worship music. What I write is music as a Christian from this perspective now, to the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So do you feel like that is your niche market where it's not so much, yes, you will worship God through your music, but you're talking to the Christian community from a Christian perspective, or to any community? Is that kind of what Amy Grant has kind of trailblazed your own way?
Um, who I think I even look at it in a more simple way than that. I mean, music has been a lifeline for me.
Right.
It's been a lifeline whether I'm listening to somebody else or writing my own song. But you know, what I try to do is go, I don't ever want to forget this feeling. I'm going to put that in a song. Or,
Mm,
man, I am so struggling with direction in my own life. Or I have questions about this. Or I love this person. Or, but to me, it's always been, I think I just write first and foremost for the audience of me.
right.
And, and then and then somebody will come along and say, I felt the exact same way you did. And so
Right.
I think when I'm writing, well, I it if there's any sort of uh, um,
Maybe mission or goal.
I was just thinking, I feel like I write more for an audience of one.
Mhm.
And so whether it's, I don't know, and I feel like that's kind of the narrative voice of my songs, is
Right.
always about close proximity to me. And
Mm,
so those songs kind of have found their own audience. And
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So,
I find that in the Christian community, there isn't a lot of people who actually do that in the reflective, like it's kind of a testimony, you're like, hey, I came out of this, or I discovered this, in my own journey. And we need voices that way. So I appreciate that from you. I
oh,
really do.
well, thank you. I think all of us just, we sort of do what comes naturally to us.
Right.
And
Hmm.
I always look at, there's so many creative voices, there's so many ways to do everything. And you know, honestly, when I never even thought about comparing myself to anybody when I was young. I mean, I was just young, stupid. I was like, yeah, no, I don't sing very high. I don't have a lot of vocal gymnastics. I just do what I do. And then all
Hmm.
of a sudden you have some success, and then you go, oh, I I can't do what those other people do. I just
Mm,
do what I do. And there's a
right.
weird thing that happens where you feel like you have to kind of measure up to some standard. And
Yeah.
then you hopefully push through that and go,
Hmm.
we all just have our own unique voice.
Right.
And, but, but I somewhere, I guess, in the last third of my life, I really saw the creative community as going, oh, it's all of us. We are all telling the story of life through music. All of us are. From, we're telling the story of our culture. Some of us are telling the story of our faith journey. But the
Hmm.
arts just tell the story of man, of
Hmm.
mankind. And so
Right.
these days I tend to look at everybody and go, "Oh yeah, you're part of the matrix. Okay, you're doing this. I'm doing this." But it's
Yes.
all creates this big beautiful picture.
Mm,
So,
that's beautiful. I was thinking, for someone, you've been in the industry for so long. I think of people like Lauren Daigle, who for now, now she's would probably be considered the artist who has, doing Christian music, but has had mainstream success as you have. Um, and although you still hear the religious voices that are like, oh dear Lord, they're going into the mainstream. I know that you dealt with that, yourself. But do you find that things have changed a little? Do you find that music with the message like you have, like artists like Lauren and other people have? Do you find that it's more accepted in the mainstream world now?
Um, yeah, I mean, to me, it was two completely different landscapes.
Mhm.
And back in the 90s, even the way that we just discovered music, it's just totally different now. There was a lot more, for a song to be heard, it had to be on the radio.
Right.
I mean, way back when it was word of mouth, but you had to find music. It was not accessible. And so, I mean, the beautiful thing about today is everything is accessible. Um, I guess that's good and bad.
I was gonna say, I said it's beautiful, but for the artist, it's also like, ooh.
Yeah, I know, but I just think in the end, songs connect with people.
Yeah.
And then, and for every artist, there's a million ways to live life, but through our songs, people will say, "Oh, well, that's their slant on life." I mean, that's true of every genre.
Yeah.
You can hear a
Mhm.
song and go, "Oh, I love that song." I don't. I mean, I do or don't relate to that the life that it came from, but
Yeah.
I'm moved by that music, and I
Mhm.
do feel like there is. Um, I mean, I feel like at any given time in the history of music, there are always circles that are open and want to hear everything. And but it's just one listener at a time. The right song at the right time can be a game changer for a person,
Mhm.
especially
Yeah.
when it has to do with faith.
Yes.
You know,
Absolutely.
and I think a lot of people connect with faith music the most deeply when they're going through a struggle.
Oh
They're
yeah.
like, does anybody know what this feels like? And then a song will come along. And even if they've never walked into a church building, they're like, this song makes it, I'm holding on to this. Like,
Right. Yes, for
it
dear
is a
life. This
lifeline.
is my,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you noticed just being an artist that's been able to have such a reach? Can you kind of share the impact of that? Because I do feel like we still sometimes have that narrow minded view. Not we, but some people in our circles would have the narrow minded view like, no, you're supposed to preach the message in just the safe places, because then you can get taken away by Satan or something. What would you say has been the impact of having that broad reach that you had? There's people who know Amy Grant who never were Christian at all.
Yeah. I don't, I have wonderful artist friends. I'm thinking of one person in particular. I love this person. And their mantra is everything I do has got to glorify God.
Mm.
And this is all I want to do. And there's so much joy that comes from that person. And then, but I go, there's so much joy in what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
I'm compelled to do something different than you are. And
Mhm.
so I just think of it more in terms of, I just think we all occupy slightly different places, and that's okay. That is
Right.
okay. And so, and once again, people connect to music because it's feeding something in them.
Oh yeah.
It's helping something, or just connecting in some way. And so, um, from a creative standpoint, I think we